The first bullet whizzed past Alexandra Alex Blackwood's ear, close enough that she felt the air displace against her skin. The second shattered the brick wall beside her, sending fragments of dust and mortar across her face. East Berlin at midnight was a labyrinth of shadows, concrete, and suspicion, exactly where a woman in her line of work wasn't supposed to be caught alone. Alex darted between the bombed-out buildings, remnants of a war that had ended 4 decades ago, but whose scars remained etched into the city's face. The footsteps behind her, 3 sets heavy military boots, were gaining ground. KGB operatives, Directorate S, by their tactical formation, specially trained to hunt assets like her. She slipped into a narrow alley, her breath forming small clouds in the frigid February air of 1980. The microfilm tucked inside her jacket felt like it weighed 100 pounds instead of mere grams. On it, the names of 17 double agents embedded throughout Eastern Europe, a death sentence if it fell into Soviet hands. There, the American bitch went this way. The voice echoed in guttural Russian from the street she had just left. Alex pressed herself against the cold stone wall, letting the darkness envelop her. The first operative rounded the corner, AK-74 leading the way. She didn't hesitate. 3 years at Fort Benning and 6 more with shadow operatives had taught her that hesitation was merely death postponed. Her movement was fluid, efficient, no wasted motion. She caught the barrel of the rifle, pushing it upward as her other hand delivered a precise strike to the man's throat. He dropped without a sound, windpipe crushed. The second man appeared just as she relieved the first of his sidearm, a Makarov PM. 2 shots center mass. The Soviet operative crumpled to the ground. The third man was smarter, hanging back, using his fallen comrade as a shield. Alex could hear his radio crackling. Backup was coming. She had minutes, perhaps less. "We know who you are, Blackwood," the operative called out, his English carrying a thick Moscow accent. "Your extraction point is compromised. Your handler is dead. Surrender the microfilm, and perhaps we can negotiate your safe passage home." Alex checked the Makarov, 3 rounds left. Not enough for what was coming. "I've always appreciated Soviet hospitality," she called back, inching toward a rusted fire escape ladder. "But I'm afraid I'll have to decline." The KGB agent fired a burst in her direction, forcing her back into cover. "There is no escape. The building is surrounded." Alex reached into her boot, withdrawing a small blade, one of the few possessions she'd carried with her across 2 continents in countless operations. It had been a gift from her mentor, Thomas Shadow Hayes, on the day she completed her training. "Always have something they don't expect," he had told her. She found a loose brick in the wall, pried it free, and threw it hard against a dumpster at the far end of the alley. The noise drew immediate fire. In that moment of distraction, Alex vaulted onto the fire escape, the old metal groaning under her weight. A bullet caught her in the shoulder as she climbed the impact, nearly sending her back to the ground 3 stories below. White-hot pain lanced through her body, but she kept moving, muscle memory and training overriding the agony. The rooftops of East Berlin offered a network of pathways invisible to those below. Alex navigated them with practiced ease despite her injury, blood seeping through her jacket and freezing in the bitter cold. 20 minutes later, she dropped down into the prearranged extraction point, an abandoned bakery 2 blocks from the wall. Her contact, an elderly German woman who had been running agents since the end of World War II, looked up from her knitting with alarm. "Mein Gott, you're bleeding." Unavoidable complication, Alex managed through gritted teeth. "The package is secure." The woman set aside her knitting and retrieved a medical kit from beneath the counter. "Your crossing has been compromised. We must move quickly." As the woman dressed her wound, Alex felt the weight of the mission pressing down on her. The microfilm contained information that could save dozens of lives, operatives who had risked everything to provide intelligence on Soviet nuclear capabilities. If she failed, they died. Simple as that. "There's a new route," the woman said, applying pressure to the wound, "through the sewers. Disgusting but unmonitored. It will get you to checkpoint Charlie, where your people are waiting." Alex nodded, the blood loss making her lightheaded. "Lead the way." The Montana sky stretched endless in pale blue as Alexandra Blackwood guided her battered Ford pickup through the gates of Fort Harding in February 1908. The truck's once navy paint had faded to a weathered gray, its bumper held together with baling wire, and sheer determination, a deliberate choice like everything else about her current appearance. The guard at the checkpoint examined her papers with obvious skepticism, his gaze shifting between the documents and her plain face framed by brown hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. His eyebrows lifted slightly. "Ma'am, you sure you're at the right place?" he asked, handing back her credentials. Alex nodded once her hazel eyes revealing nothing. "I'm sure." The guard shrugged and waved her through. As she pulled away, she caught his reflection in the rearview mirror, already radioing ahead. She knew what he was saying. They hadn't expected someone like her. Fort Harding housed the Advanced Military Intelligence Training Program, the most rigorous officer training in the United States military. Established in 1975 after the fall of Saigon, it was created to develop a new generation of intelligence operatives who could navigate the treacherous waters of the Cold War. The Soviet threat loomed larger than ever, and America needed eyes and ears in places where uniformed soldiers couldn't go. Alex parked her truck between two polished Jeeps, the contrast stark and immediate. She stepped out, boots crunching on gravel, and shouldered a worn canvas backpack that had seen too many miles. Her olive drab t-shirt was faded but crisp, her cargo pants well-worn but immaculate. Nothing about her screamed soldier, let alone officer. She looked like someone who might deliver mail to the base, not train within it. Across the yard, 40 men and women stood in formation, their uniforms pressed, their postures perfect. Alex walked toward them, unhurried, her gait steady and economical. Every eye turned to watch her approach. Conversation dropping to whispers, then silence. "Who the hell is that?" Major Nathan Cole muttered to the man beside him. Cole stood 6'2", with shoulders built from years of college football at West Point and a confidence honed in the officer ranks of the 82nd Airborne. His father, Senator William Cole, held a prominent position on the Armed Services Committee, and his grandfather had been a general. Military service ran in his blood like a covenant. Before anyone could answer, Colonel Walter Harrison strode onto the parade ground, clipboard in hand. He was lean and hard, a Vietnam veteran, with a perpetual scowl etched into his face. The formation snapped to attention. "At ease," Harrison barked, scanning the line. His eyes found Alex standing slightly apart from the group. "Name and rank." "Alexandra Blackwood, Captain," she replied, her voice calm and clear. Harrison checked his clipboard, frowning. "You're late, Blackwood." "My truck broke down outside of Billings, sir. I fixed it as quickly as I could." A ripple of suppressed laughter moved through the formation. "Fixed her own truck like some grease monkey." Harrison's eyes narrowed. "This program doesn't tolerate excuses. Fall in." Alex took her place at the end of the line. She felt the stares but didn't acknowledge them. She'd faced worse. Much worse. "Ladies and gentlemen," Harrison addressed the group pacing before them like a caged predator. "Welcome to hell. For the next 16 weeks, you will be pushed beyond your limits. You will be broken down and rebuilt. Half of you won't make it past the first month. Another quarter will wash out before graduation." He paused, his gaze sweeping across their faces. "This isn't about who you were before. Your family names, your connections, your previous assignments. None of that matters here. What matters is what you can do, what you can endure, and what you can become." His eyes lingered on Alex for a moment longer than the others. "Dismissed to barracks. Gear inspection at 100 tomorrow. Don't be late." As the formation dispersed, Alex felt a shoulder brush roughly against hers. Nathan Cole looked down at her, his mouth twisted in a smirk. "You sure you're in the right place, farm girl?" Alex met his gaze without expression. "Quite right." He snorted and walked away, joined by a woman with sharp features and calculating eyes. Captain Diana Reeves, her name tag read. She glanced back at Alex with undisguised contempt. "Gender quota, yeah," Reeves murmured, just loud enough for Alex to hear. "They'll let anyone in these days." Alex picked up her bag and headed toward the women's barracks, ignoring the whispers that followed her. The concrete building was Spartan rows of metal bunks, industrial lockers, and communal showers that promised no privacy. She claimed a bottom bunk in the corner, the least desirable spot where the pipes clanked all night and the draft was coldest. Reeves entered with two other women claiming the bunks nearest the heater. She watched Alex methodically unpacking her meager belongings, 3 sets of fatigues worn, but meticulously maintained, a small leather case containing a sewing kit and basic toiletries, a folded photograph she placed carefully in her breast pocket, without looking at it. "Hey, thrift shop," Reeves called out. "Where'd you serve before this, the motor pool?" Alex continued arranging her gear. her movements precise and economical. Force Recon Camp Lejeune. Before that, Fort Benning. Reeves's eyebrows rose slightly. Force Recon was no joke, the Marine Corps' elite reconnaissance unit. But Alex didn't look the part. No swagger, no visible muscle, nothing that said special operations. Reeves exchanged glances with her companions. Right, she said unconvinced. And I'm the Queen of England. Alex didn't respond. She finished her preparations, lay back on her bunk, and closed her eyes, hands folded across her stomach. To anyone watching, she might have been asleep. But beneath her eyelids, her eyes were moving, scanning the room, mapping exits, cataloging details. Old habits. Morning came brutally early at Fort Harding. The instructors believed in the Soviet threat and the need for perfect soldiers to counter it. At 0430, the lights blazed on and boots thundered through the hallways. By 0500, Alex was standing at attention beside her bunk uniform, crisp bed made with hospital corners tight enough to bounce a quarter. Colonel Harrison moved through the barracks like a storm front, inspecting each area with surgical precision. When he reached Alex's bunk, he paused, searching for a flaw. Finding none, his frown deepened, as if her perfection was an insult rather than a virtue. Adequate black wood, he said before moving on. At 0530, the entire class assembled on the parade ground for physical training. The Montana morning was bitter cold frost silvering the grass. Steam rose from their bodies as they began jumping, jacks push-ups, sit-ups, and a 5-mile run that took them up the punishing hills surrounding the base. Alex kept pace easily. Her breathing measured her strides, economical. She didn't push to the front, didn't lag behind. She simply maintained her position in the middle of the pack, seemingly without effort. Cole noticed. Running beside her, he increased his pace, expecting her to fall behind. When she matched him effortlessly, his jaw tightened. Not bad for a grease monkey, he said between breaths, voice dripping with condescension. Alex didn't respond, her eyes fixed on the path ahead. What's wrong? Too winded to talk. Cole pressed his own breathing, becoming labored as they hit an incline. Conserving energy, she replied simply, her voice steady. By mile 4, Cole was struggling. Alex maintained her pace, neither slowing nor accelerating. When they crested the final hill, Cole stumbled, slightly. Without breaking stride, Alex's hand shot out, steadying him just enough to prevent a fall. Cole yanked his arm away, as if burned. I don't need your help, he hissed. Alex dropped her hand and continued running, face impassive. At breakfast in the mess hall, Alex sat alone, methodically consuming a tray of powdered eggs, toast, and black coffee. The room buzzed with conversation bonds already forming among the trainees. She felt Reeves's eyes on her from across the room, heard the whispers, the snickers. It didn't matter. She wasn't here to make friends. A shadow fell across her tray. She looked up to see Lieutenant Jason Shaw, a former Army Ranger with a square jaw and calculating eyes. This seat taken, he asked, though he was already sitting down. Alex shook her head once returning to her food. You're not what I expected, Shaw said, studying her. And what did you expect? She asked, her voice neutral. Shaw shrugged. Someone who looks like they belong in an intelligence unit. You look like you should be fixing Jeeps somewhere. Appearances can be deceiving, she replied. So they say. Shaw leaned closer. Word is you were Force Recon. That true? Alex took a sip of her coffee, neither confirming nor denying. Because I know guys in Force Recon, Shaw continued. Tough sons of bitches, every one of them. They don't make them small and quiet like you. Alex set down her mug. Are you questioning my service record at Shaw? Something in her tone made him hesitate. For just a moment, her eyes met his, and what he saw there made him lean back involuntarily. Just making conversation, he said, his smirk returning. No offense meant. None taken. She finished her coffee and stood. Excuse me. As she walked away, Shaw called after her. See you at the range, Blackwood. Hope you can shoot better than you can socialize. The firing range at Fort Harding was state-of-the-art, designed to simulate combat conditions rather than traditional marksmanship. The morning's exercise involved moving through a course with multiple target stations, engaging enemies while distinguishing them from civilians, all under simulated stress conditions, including smoke noise and instructors shouting contradictory commands. Each trainee was issued an M16A1, the standard service rifle that had seen America through the jungles of Vietnam. The weapon was a controversial choice. Many soldiers had reported jamming issues in muddy conditions, but it remained the backbone of the infantry. Its lightweight design and 5.56 millimeter rounds made it manageable for extended operations, though at the cost of stopping power compared to the older M14 with its 7.62 millimeter ammunition. Alex checked her weapon methodically. Bolt chamber magazine sights. Her hands moved with practiced precision, familiar with every curve and mechanism of the rifle. This particular M16 had seen better days. The stock was worn smooth, the barrel showed signs of heavy use, and the sights were slightly misaligned. Colonel Harrison watched her inspection with narrowed eyes. "Problem with your weapon, Blackwood?" "No, sir," she replied, not looking up. "Just getting acquainted." When her turn came to run the course, Alex moved with fluid efficiency. No wasted motion, no hesitation. She flowed from cover to cover, dropped to prone position when necessary, and engaged targets with mechanical precision. Her shots clustered tightly to the center mass of each hostile target in perfect trigger discipline on the civilian silhouettes. At the final station, a target pivoted unexpectedly from behind a barrier, a child holding a weapon. In the split second allowed for decision-making, Alex's shot struck the silhouette's arm, disabling without killing. She adjusted for the misaligned sights, instinctively compensating with each shot. Alex controlled her breathing, calculated wind resistance, and made split-second adjustments that spoke of thousands of hours behind a rifle. The barrel felt like an extension of her arm, the weight and balance as familiar as her own heartbeat. When she emerged from the course, the rangemaster checked her score with evident surprise. 42 targets, engaged, 42 hit, 0 civilian casualties, optimal ammunition conservation. Despite the misaligned sight, she had compensated perfectly. Cole ran the course next, his movements aggressive and showy. He hit 39 targets, but also struck 2 civilians. When he saw Alex's score posted on the board, his face darkened. "Beginner's luck," he muttered to Reeves, who had done nearly as well as Alex. Reeves's eyes narrowed. "She's not what she seems." The afternoon brought classroom instruction, intelligence gathering methodologies, threat assessment protocols, and the psychology of interrogation. The instructor, Major Lawrence Bennett, was a former CIA analyst with a hawkish view of Soviet intentions. "The Russians aren't just our military adversaries," he explained, pacing before a map showing Soviet spheres of influence. "They're engaged in an ideological war for the soul of humanity. Their agents are embedded in governments worldwide. Their influence operations are sophisticated and far-reaching." Alex sat near the back, taking minimal notes. Bennett noticed. "Blackwood," he called suddenly, "you seem unimpressed by the Soviet threat. Perhaps you'd like to share your assessment of their capabilities in Eastern Europe." Without hesitation, Alex rose. "The Warsaw Pact nations represent a formidable conventional force, with approximately 201 divisions compared to NATO's 133. Their T-62 and T-72 tanks outnumber our M-60s by nearly 3 to 1. However, their command structure suffers from rigid centralization, creating vulnerabilities that can be exploited through asymmetric operations." She paused, then continued, her voice steady and authoritative. "Their most significant advantage lies not in military hardware, but in human intelligence assets. The KGB and GRU have successfully penetrated multiple NATO security apparatuses. The defection of James Angleton's protege last year compromised at least 17 field operations in East Germany alone." The room had gone silent. Bennett stared at her, his expression unreadable. "That information about the Angleton case isn't in the course materials," he said slowly. "In fact, it's classified." Alex met his gaze. "Yes, sir. See me after class, Blackwood." When the session ended, Alex approached Bennett's desk. He was studying her file, his brow furrowed. "Your record is interesting," he said without looking up. "Extensive redactions, minimal personal information. Your previous commanding officer's assessments are either missing or classified above my clearance level." He closed the folder and finally met her eyes. "Who are you really, Captain Blackwood?" "Just a soldier, sir." Bennett leaned back in his chair. "I've been teaching this course for 3 years. I know every major intelligence operation run in Eastern Europe since 1970. Yet I've never heard of you." "That would suggest the system is working as designed, wouldn't it, sir?" A ghost of a smile crossed Bennett's face. Watch yourself, Blackwood. Cole and his crowd don't appreciate mysteries, and they don't fight fair. Noted, sir. Dang. The following days fell into a grueling rhythm. Pre-dawn physical training, tactical exercises, classroom instruction, and evening study sessions that often stretched past midnight. The program was designed to identify weaknesses to push boundaries until they broke. Each day, more trainees washed out unable to meet the punishing standards. Alex endured. She never excelled ostentatiously, never failed spectacularly. She simply persisted, her performance consistent and unremarkable, except in moments when true expertise couldn't be hidden. During a field exercise in land navigation, the trainees were dropped in wilderness terrain with minimal equipment in order to reach designated coordinates within 6 hours. A storm moved in, bringing driving snow and near-zero visibility. Several teams became disoriented, including Cole's. Alex navigated the treacherous conditions with uncanny precision, reading the terrain through the blinding snow, tracking the North Star during brief breaks in the cloud cover, noting animal behavior that signaled weather changes. She reached the rally point 2 hours ahead of schedule. When Cole's team finally arrived soaked and miserable, he found her calmly waiting under an improvised shelter, a small fire burning despite the wet conditions. "How the hell did you manage that?" he demanded, gesturing to the fire. Alex shrugged. "Pine resin burns even when wet. Old trick." Cole's eyes narrowed. "You're enjoying this, aren't you, making us look bad?" "I'm just doing my job," she replied evenly. "Your job?" he scoffed. "What exactly is your job?" "Blackwood, nobody knows where you came from. Nobody knows how someone like you got into a program like this." Alex stoked the fire, her face illuminated by the dancing flames. "Perhaps you should focus less on me and more on your own performance, Cole. You missed the rally point by nearly a kilometer." His face flushed with anger. "This isn't over," he muttered, turning away. That night in the barracks, Alex felt the atmosphere shift. The other women were no longer simply dismissive. Now there was active hostility. Reeves sat on her bunk watching Alex with cold calculation. "You think you're special," Reeves said, her voice carrying in the quiet room. "But we've all seen your type before. Women who sleep their way to advancement." Alex continued preparing her gear for the next day's exercise, her movements unhurried. "Nothing to say," Reeves pressed. "No denial, no righteous indignation." "Would it change your mind if I did?" Alex asked without looking up. Reeves laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "My father fought in Korea. My brother died in Beirut. I earned my place here through sacrifice and service." "What did you sacrifice, Blackwood, besides your dignity?" Alex finally looked up at her eyes meeting Reeves's. For a brief moment, something flickered in their depths, a shadow of experiences too dark to name. Then it was gone, her expression once again impassive. "Good night, Reeves," she said quietly, turning away. Week 3 brought the dreaded SARE training, survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. Normally reserved for special operations forces and pilots, this condensed version was designed to prepare intelligence officers for worst-case scenarios behind enemy lines. The trainees were transported to a remote training facility in the mountains, a mock prisoner of war camp, complete with guard towers, barbed wire, and instructors playing the role of hostile captors. They were processed and stripped of personal items, issued prisoner uniforms, and subjected to disorientation techniques, including sleep deprivation and loud continuous noise. Alex moved through the intake procedures mechanically, her face betraying nothing, as male guards conducted invasive searches and hurled verbal abuse. When one guard grabbed her roughly by the arm, she didn't resist, didn't flinch. Her eyes remained fixed on the middle distance, seeing something far beyond the present moment. The trainees were separated into isolation cells, subjected to hours of interrogation. The instructors used psychological tactics rather than physical torture, though the lines sometimes blurred. Stress positions, temperature, manipulation, and targeted psychological pressure were all part of the program. On the third day, Cole broke. After 36 hours without sleep, he gave up key information during a mock interrogation. When he was returned to the common area where the prisoners were periodically gathered, his face was ashen, his confidence shattered. Alex had been placed in a punishment cell for insubordination, refusing to reveal even basic biographical information to her interrogators. She was brought back to the common area on the fourth day, moving stiffly from hours spent in a stress position, but her eyes were clear and focused. Shaw watched her with growing curiosity. "How are you still functioning?" he whispered when the guards weren't looking. "They've had you in the box for 20 hours. Alex took a small sip from the metallic-tasting water they had been provided. "Focus on your breathing, compartmentalize the pain, find a memory, and live in it." Shaw studied her face, really seeing her for the first time. Beneath the plain features and unassuming demeanor was something forged in fire, a strength that didn't come from physical size or institutional power. "Where did you learn to do that?" he asked. Before she could answer, the guards returned, separating them for another round of interrogations. The breaking point came during the final exercise, a simulated escape and evasion scenario. The trainees, now reduced to 20 from the original 40, were transported to a new facility. During the move, they were given an opportunity to escape and evade capture in the surrounding wilderness for 48 hours. They were divided into teams of 4. Alex found herself grouped with Cole, Reeves, and Shaw, the 3 people in the program who had shown her the most hostility or suspicion. It was no coincidence. The instructors deliberately created friction to test how teams performed under stress. "Great," Cole muttered when the assignments were announced. "We get the janitor." Alex ignored the jab, focusing instead on memorizing the terrain map they were shown briefly before the exercise began. When they were loaded into transport vehicles with bags over their heads, she was already formulating a plan. The escape opportunity came when the convoy stopped at a checkpoint. In the confusion of a staged argument between guards, the trainees were meant to slip away. Cole immediately took charge, leading their group toward the tree line at a reckless pace that left them exposed. "We need to move northeast," he insisted once they reached cover. "There's an extraction point marked on the map." "That's a trap," Alex said quietly. "It's too obvious." Cole rounded on her. "No one asked for your opinion." "She's right," Shaw interjected. "It makes no sense to put an extraction point where they showed us on the map. They're testing whether we can think independently." Reeves looked between them, then at the darkening sky. "We need to make a decision. They'll have search parties out soon." "We go south," Alex said with quiet authority. "The terrain is more difficult, but it provides better cover. There's a river valley that will mask our heat signatures from infrared tracking." "How the hell would you know about infrared tracking?" Cole demanded. Alex met his gaze steadily. "Because that's what I would do if I were hunting escaped prisoners." Something in her tone silenced further argument. They moved south, Alex naturally taking point, leading them through dense underbrush and across rocky terrain that left minimal tracks. Night fell, bringing with it a bone-deep cold that made their teeth chatter. "We need shelter," Reeves said, hugging herself for warmth. Alex nodded. "There's a formation of rocks ahead that should provide cover from 3 sides. We can rest there until dawn." The makeshift shelter was cramped but defensible. Alex organized a watch rotation, taking the first shift herself. As the others tried to sleep, she sat at the entrance, eyes scanning the darkness, ears attuned to the forest sounds. Shaw couldn't sleep. He watched Alex from where he lay, noting how she periodically checked sightlines, how her hand occasionally drifted to her ankle, where in a real situation a weapon might be concealed. "You've done this before," he said, softly, not wanting to wake the others. "For real, I mean." Alex didn't turn around. "Get some rest, Shaw. Your watch is next." "That's not an answer." "No," she agreed, "it's not." Dawn brought new challenges. Aircraft sounds overhead indicated the search had intensified. Alex led them through a stream to mask their scent from tracking dogs, then through a series of ravines that kept them hidden from aerial observation. By midday, exhaustion and hunger were taking their toll. Cole's earlier confidence had evaporated, replaced by simmering resentment. When Alex suggested they split up temporarily to confuse pursuers, he saw an opportunity. "Fine," he said. "Reeves and I will circle west. You and Shaw go east. We'll rendezvous at the lightning-struck pine we passed an hour ago." Alex nodded, though something in Cole's manner put her on alert. She and Shaw headed east, moving carefully through increasingly rocky terrain. "He's planning something," Shaw said once they were alone. "He's had it in for you since day one." "I know," Alex replied. "But right now, surviving this exercise is more important than Cole's ego." They continued in silence for several minutes before Shaw spoke again. "Why does he hate you so much? What did you do to him?" Alex paused, considering how to answer. "I represent something he doesn't understand. People fear what they don't understand." "And what's that?" Someone who succeeds without needing to prove themselves at every turn. The ambush came as they were navigating a narrow path between two rock formations. Cole and Reeves had doubled back, positioning themselves on higher ground. As Alex and Shaw entered the pass, Cole shoved a boulder down the slope. Alex heard it before she saw it, the subtle scrape of stone against stone. She reacted instinctively, shoving Shaw clear of the path. The boulder crashed down, missing them both, but sending a shower of smaller rocks cascading around them. Alex lost her footing, tumbling several feet down a steep incline before catching herself against a tree. Her shirt tore, exposing her back as she struggled to regain her balance. Shaw scrambled down to help her, then froze his eyes fixed on what the torn fabric had revealed. Across her left shoulder blade was a tattoo, a black panther in mid-leap poised above a shattered compass. The design was stark against her skin, the detail extraordinary. "Holy shit," Shaw whispered. "You're one of them." Alex pulled the fabric, closed her eyes suddenly hard. "Help me up." Above them, Cole and Reeves appeared at the edge of the incline, their expressions shifting from triumph to confusion at seeing both Alex and Shaw alive. "It was an accident," Cole called down, his voice unconvincing. "Rock must have come loose." Shaw ignored him, still staring at Alex. "Shadow operatives." He said the name barely audible. "My uncle told me stories, said they were ghosts, that they didn't exist in any official capacity." "Your uncle talks too much," Alex replied tersely, getting to her feet. Before Shaw could respond, a new voice cut through the tension. "That's enough." All four trainees turned to see Colonel William Montgomery standing at the top of the ridge, his weathered face set in grim lines. Montgomery was the commanding officer of Fort Harding, a legendary figure in military intelligence circles who rarely interacted directly with trainees. His eyes were fixed on Alex, specifically on the torn section of her shirt that partially revealed the tattoo. His expression changed from anger to shock, then to something approaching reverence. "Captain Blackwood," he said, his voice different now. "My apologies for the interruption." Alex straightened, meeting his gaze. "No apology necessary, Colonel." Montgomery turned to Cole and Reeves, his previous deference replaced by cold fury. "You two report to Colonel Harrison immediately. This exercise is over." As Cole and Reeves retreated, visibly confused by the colonel's reaction, Montgomery approached Alex. He stopped a respectful distance away, then did something that left Shaw speechless. He saluted her, a gesture of profound respect from a superior officer to a subordinate. "It's an honor," Montgomery said quietly. "Shadow spoke highly of you." Alex returned the salute, her posture shifting subtly. For the first time since arriving at Fort Harding, she stood with her full presence revealed. No longer the unassuming figure blending into the background, but a soldier of extraordinary capability and experience. "The honor is mine, Colonel," she replied. "He spoke highly of you as well." Montgomery nodded, then turned to Shaw, who was watching the exchange with undisguised confusion. "Lieutenant Shaw, what you've witnessed today is classified. Do you understand?" Shaw swallowed hard, nodding. "Yes, sir." "Good." Montgomery gestured toward a path leading back to the base. "Shall we, Captain Blackwood? I believe we have matters to discuss." As they walked, Shaw fell in step beside Alex, his voice low. "Who are you really?" Alex glanced at him, then at the Montana mountains surrounding them. For a moment, her eyes seemed to look beyond the present to places and times Shaw couldn't imagine. "Someone who learned the hard way that appearances are the best camouflage," she finally answered, "and that the quietest warriors are often the most effective." Ahead of them, the training facility came into view, its buildings stark against the landscape. And standing at the main gate, his posture unmistakable, even at a distance, was a man whose presence changed the very air around him. Tall, broad-shouldered, with silver hair, cut military short, he wore the stars of a general on his uniform. Alex's steps faltered for just a moment before she continued forward, her face once again an unreadable mask. "That's General Robert Blackwood," Shaw said, his voice tinged with awe. "Deputy Commander of Special Operations Command. What's he doing here?" Alex didn't answer, but as they drew closer, the general's eyes found hers across the distance, and something passed between them, a silent communication born of shared experiences and deeper connections. "He's waiting for you," Montgomery said quietly. "Yes," Alex replied. "He always does." The debriefing room at Fort Harding was a windowless concrete box designed to contain secrets. The walls were lined with copper mesh Faraday shielding to prevent electronic eavesdropping. No recording devices, no microphones, no possibility of leaked information. Perfect silence reigned except for the soft hum of an air purifier that doubled as white noise generation. Alexandra Blackwood sat across from Colonel William Montgomery, a steel table between them, the harsh fluorescent light casting shadows across their faces. General Robert Blackwood stood by the door, his presence filling the small space with quiet authority. "Shadow operatives," Montgomery said, breaking the silence. "I thought the unit was deactivated after Munich." Alex's face remained impassive. "Officially it was." "And unofficially," Montgomery pressed. General Blackwood interjected, his deep voice resonating in the confined space. "Some questions are better left unasked, Colonel." Montgomery nodded, understanding the boundaries. He slid a folder across the table to Alex, her personnel file, the cover stamped with classification markings that exceeded his own security clearance. "Your actual service record," he said. "The unredacted version arrived this morning, hand-delivered by the general himself." Alex didn't touch the folder. "Then you know why I'm here. I know that you're not just another trainee." Montgomery leaned forward, his weathered face etched with a mix of respect and concern. "What I don't understand is why someone with your qualifications would submit to this program at all, let alone tolerate the treatment you've received." Alex's eyes met the general's for a brief moment before returning to Montgomery. "Assessment and recruitment." Understanding dawned on Montgomery's face. "You're evaluating my people." "Some of them," she confirmed. "Intelligence suggests Soviet counterintelligence has been placing sleeper agents in military training programs. We needed to observe from within." Montgomery absorbed this, his expression darkening. "And have you found what you were looking for?" "Not yet," Alex replied. "But we're getting closer." And the colonel glanced at General Blackwood, who gave a barely perceptible nod. "Whatever resources you need, Captain Blackwood, they're yours. But there's the matter of Cole and Reeves. Their actions today were exactly what we needed," Alex interrupted. "Pressure reveals character. Let them think they've won a small victory. It will make them careless." Montgomery nodded slowly. "As you wish." He stood gathering the file. "There's one more thing. Your tattoo, the Black Panther, is known only to a handful of people with the highest clearances." "Shaw won't speak about what he saw," Alex said with quiet certainty. After Montgomery left the room, fell into silence. Alex finally looked fully at General Blackwood, her professional mask softening almost imperceptibly. "Robert," she said, her voice lower now, more intimate. "Alex." He moved to the chair Montgomery had vacated, his movements precise despite his imposing frame. Up close, the lines around his eyes were deeper than when she'd last seen him 3 months ago. "You're taking unnecessary risks," he said, his tone measured but concern evident in his eyes. "We've had this conversation before, and we'll keep having it until you stop being so damn stubborn." Despite his words, there was no real anger in his voice, only concern wrapped in years of shared history. Alex's lips curved in the bare suggestion of a smile. "It's why you married me." The tension in Blackwood's shoulders eased slightly. He reached across the table, his large hand covering hers. His thumb brushed over the simple gold band on her finger, the only personal item she hadn't stored away upon arrival. "How's the shoulder?" he asked, referring to her wound from Berlin. "Healed, barely a scar." Blackwood nodded, shifting to business. "The Joint Chiefs are concerned about Hayes." 3 years of silence, then suddenly he surfaces in East Berlin, crosses Checkpoint Charlie, using credentials that shouldn't exist anymore, and leaves a message at the dead drop on Frankfurter Allee. What did the message say? "She wasn't the last, that's all." Alex withdrew her hand, her posture straightening. "He's talking about Natalia Orlova, the defector from the Leningrad residency." Blackwood nodded. "The one who claimed there were multiple moles in our intelligence apparatus. The one who was found with her throat cut 3 days after debriefing." "Hayes trained her," Alex said quietly, before he disappeared. "Shadow operatives always operated outside normal chains of command." Blackwood said, his tone careful. "Even I never had full visibility into your operations. But whatever Hayes is doing now, he's doing it without authorization." Alex stood pacing the small room with controlled energy. He wouldn't break protocol without reason. If he surfaced now after 3 years of silence, it means something critical has changed. "Or he's compromised," Blackwood countered. "The Soviets would love nothing more than to capture the legendary Thomas Hayes, to turn him." Alex stopped, fixing him with a hard stare. He would die before turning. Everyone breaks eventually, Alex, even the best. Not him, her voice held absolute conviction. And not me, Blackwood sighed, running a hand over his face. That's what I'm afraid of. The tension between them was broken by a sharp knock at the door. Colonel Harrison entered without waiting for a response, his face tight with barely contained anger. Sir, he addressed Blackwood, deliberately ignoring Alex. Cole and Reeves are claiming Blackwood sabotaged the exercise. They're demanding a formal review. Blackwood's expression hardened. Are they indeed, and who exactly do they think they are to demand anything? Harrison shifted uncomfortably. Cole's father sits on the Armed Services Committee, sir. He's already made a call to the base commander. Of course he has. Blackwood stood straightening to his full imposing height. Colonel Harrison, effective immediately, Captain Blackwood, is no longer a trainee in your program. She is now a special advisor with full operational authority, answerable only to myself and Colonel Montgomery. Harrison blinked, confusion and surprise washing over his face. Sir, you heard me, Colonel. Captain Blackwood's cover is officially blown, which means we pivot to the next phase of the operation. He turned to Alex. I assume this works with your assessment parameters. Alex nodded once. It does, sir. Good. Blackwood faced Harrison again. Assemble the remaining trainees in the lecture hall in 1 hour. And Colonel, not a word about this conversation to anyone. Clear, crystal clear, sir. After Harrison left, Alex looked at her husband with a raised eyebrow. Special advisor. Would you prefer avenging angel, because that's the look you're giving me right now? A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Besides, it's not entirely a cover. Your expertise will be genuinely valuable to these trainees. Those who aren't Soviet plants anyway. His smile faded. Find them, Alex, before they find us. The lecture hall buzzed with speculation. The abrupt cancellation of the SARE exercise, the appearance of a 2-star general on base, and the rumors about what had happened in the mountains, it all fueled a wildfire of theories among the trainees. Shaw sat apart from the others, his mind still processing what he'd witnessed. The tattoo on Alex's back wasn't just any design. His uncle, a former Night Stalker pilot who transported special operations teams during Vietnam, had told him whispered stories about an elite unit that operated so far in the shadows that most of the military didn't know they existed. Shadow operatives, they called themselves, named for their ability to appear and disappear like ghosts, leaving nothing but whispers in their wake. His uncle had transported them once, a team of 6 operators who boarded his helicopter without insignia, their faces obscured their weapons, unlike anything he'd seen before. The only identifying mark, a Black Panther tattoo. You look like you've seen a ghost, Reeves said, sliding into the seat beside him. Her usual confidence seemed diminished, her eyes darting nervously around the room. Maybe I have, Shaw replied vaguely. What happened out there after we left? Reeves pressed. Did Blackwood say anything? Shaw studied her with new wariness. Why was she so interested? Nothing important, just standard reprimand stuff. Before Reeves could respond, the side door opened and Colonel Montgomery entered, followed by Colonel Harrison. The room immediately fell silent. Montgomery took position at the podium, his posture rigid. Trainees, he began, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. There has been a change in the program structure. For the remainder of your training, you will have the benefit of a special advisor with unique field experience. The main doors at the back of the hall opened and every head turned. General Blackwood entered first, his uniform immaculate, his presence commanding immediate respect. Behind him came Alex, but not the Alex they had known for the past 3 weeks. Gone was the plain, unremarkable woman in faded fatigues. In her place stood a soldier whose very bearing radiated quiet authority. She wore standard officer service uniform, but on her chest were rows of ribbons and decorations that told a story of extraordinary service, including several that Shaw didn't recognize. Her hair was still pulled back, but the severe style now seemed less about blending in and more about practicality. As she walked down the center aisle, her eyes swept across the assembled trainees, missing nothing. When her gaze passed over Shaw, he felt a chill run down his spine, not from fear, but from the sudden realization that he'd been in the presence of something rare and dangerous without knowing it. Cole, seated in the front row, stiffened visibly. His face flushed red as Alex passed him without acknowledgement, taking her place beside Montgomery at the podium. Many of you, Montgomery continued, have questioned Captain Blackwood's qualifications and presence in this program. Those questions end today. Captain Blackwood has more field experience than most of you will accumulate in your entire careers. She has operated behind enemy lines in conditions that would break most soldiers. And for the next 7 weeks, she will be evaluating your performance, your character, and your potential for special operations assignments. A murmur ran through the room. Special operations assignments were coveted positions, pathways to accelerated promotion, and prestigious roles within the intelligence community. Montgomery stepped aside, yielding the podium to Alex. She surveyed the room for a long moment before speaking, her voice calm, but carrying an unmistakable note of authority. Intelligence work isn't about who's the strongest, the fastest, or the most politically connected, she began. It's about who can think clearly when everything falls apart. It's about who can maintain their cover when every instinct screams for them to run. It's about who can be trusted with secrets that could start or end wars. She paused, letting her words settle over the silent room. In the field, your fancy degrees and family connections won't save you. Your ability to adapt, to think creatively, and to maintain absolute loyalty to your mission and your country, that's what will keep you alive. Her eyes found Cole then Reeves. Some of you have already demonstrated that you prioritize personal advancement over mission integrity. That ends now. Cole's jaw tightened visibly, but he remained silent. Starting tomorrow, Alex continued, you will undergo a specialized training regimen focused on covert operations, counterintelligence, and deep cover protocols. Those who cannot meet the standard will be reassigned. Those who can will be considered for roles you previously didn't know existed. She stepped back, yielding the podium to General Blackwood. As he began outlining administrative changes to the program, Reeves leaned close to Shaw. What the hell is going on? She whispered. Who is she really? Shaw shook his head, slightly unwilling to share what he knew or thought he knew. Something about Reeves's intensity put him on edge. Her interest seemed more than professional curiosity. After the briefing, the trainees were dismissed to the barracks with orders to prepare for an early start the next day. As they filed out, Shaw noticed Alex speaking quietly with General Blackwood in a corner, their heads bent close together. Though they maintained professional distance, there was an intimacy to their conversation that suggested a deeper connection. Cole noticed too. Sleeping her way to the top after all, he muttered, just loud enough for those nearby to hear. Should have guessed. Shaw felt a surge of disgust. You don't know what you're talking about, Cole. Don't I? Cole's eyes narrowed. First day she's exposed and suddenly she's best friends with a 2-star general. Come on, even you're not that naive. Before Shaw could respond, a hand clamped down on Cole's shoulder. Colonel Harrison stood there, his expression thunderous. Lieutenant Cole, he said, his voice dangerously low. A word outside. Now. As Harrison led Cole away, Shaw glanced back toward Alex and Blackwood. They were watching the exchange, their expressions unreadable. For a brief moment, Alex's eyes met Shaw's. There was something in them, a warning perhaps, or an evaluation. Then she turned away, continuing her conversation as if nothing had happened. The conference room deep within Fort Harding's secured section was unlike any other on the base. No windows, reinforced walls, multiple layers of soundproofing, and the most advanced counter-surveillance technology available. It was a place where America's most closely guarded secrets could be discussed without fear of interception. Alex stood at the head of the table facing Colonel Montgomery and 2 other officers with the highest security clearances on base. The wall behind her displayed a series of photographs, trainees from the current class, their official military portraits arranged in a grid. Shadow operatives, she began, addressing the obvious question in the room. Founded in 1972 after the Munich Olympics massacre demonstrated the inadequacy of conventional military response to non-state actors. We operate outside standard military hierarchies, reporting directly to a small oversight committee within the Department of Defense. Montgomery leaned forward. I've been in military intelligence for 25 years. How is it possible I've never heard confirmed reports of your existence? That's precisely the point, Colonel, Alex replied. Our effectiveness depends on anonymity. We're trained to be forgettable to blend in completely. Thomas Shadow Hayes designed the program around what he called deliberate mediocrity, the art of being so unremarkable that you're functionally invisible. She touched a control pad, and the display changed to show a black and white photograph of a tall, powerfully built man with steel gray eyes and a face that seemed carved from granite. His military uniform bore no insignia, no rank, nothing that would identify his unit or role. Hayes personally trained the first generation of shadow operatives. He selected candidates who demonstrated exceptional capabilities, but who physically appeared ordinary. People who could disappear in a crowd. People others would underestimate. People like you, one of the other officers observed. Alex nodded once. Each operative received the same tattoo upon completion of training, a visual marker that could be concealed, but would identify us to each other when necessary. And your presence here at Fort Harding? Montgomery asked. I'm assuming it's not a coincidence. No, Alex confirmed. 3 months ago, a high-level KGB defector named Natalia Orlova claimed that Soviet intelligence had successfully embedded multiple deep-cover agents within American military training programs. Specifically, she mentioned Fort Harding before she was killed. The room fell silent as the implications settled. You believe there are Soviet sleeper agents among our trainees? Montgomery said, his voice tight with controlled anger. We know there are, Alex corrected. What we don't know is who they are or what their specific mission entails. Until 3 days ago. She changed the display again, showing a coded message. This was intercepted from a diplomatic pouch coming out of East Berlin. It uses an old Phantom Echo cipher, one known only to shadow operatives. It's from Hayes. Montgomery frowned. Hayes has been missing for 3 years, presumed dead by many. Evidently not, Alex replied dryly. The message reads, Black Widow activated, primary target safe house inventory, secondary target shadow personnel, containment compromised, Vienna meeting burned. Black Widow, and one of the officers asked. A KGB sleeper operation, Alex explained. The safe house inventory refers to a master list of all our covert facilities in Eastern Europe, including the names of assets being sheltered there. If that information falls into Soviet hands, dozens of people dump and our intelligence operations behind the Iron Curtain collapse completely. And Vienna meeting burned means Hayes has been compromised, Montgomery concluded. Alex nodded. Last night, our signals intelligence detected unusual radio traffic, encrypted using frequencies we know the Soviets favor for field operations. Here at Fort Harding, Montgomery's face paled slightly. Yes, a brief transmission, impossible to pinpoint exactly, but definitely originating from somewhere on base. The senior officers exchanged grim looks. So we have at least one active Soviet agent on base trying to access highly classified information that could compromise our entire European intelligence network, Montgomery summarized. And they know we're onto them. Not one, Alex corrected. 3. Hayes's message was specific. 3 agents working together but compartmentalized. Standard KGB protocol for high-value infiltration. 3, Montgomery repeated, his voice hollow. Out of how many trainees? 20 remaining in the current class. Montgomery looked at the grid of faces on the display. How do you propose that we identify them? Alex's expression was resolute. We create a controlled environment where they'll be forced to act. Tomorrow we begin a counterintelligence exercise disguised as diplomatic training. We'll be watching for specific behavioral patterns, communication techniques, and responses to targeted stimuli. She outlined her plan in detail, a simulated international conference where trainees would assume cover identities as diplomats from various nations. The exercise would incorporate multiple elements designed to provoke reactions from potential infiltrators. Won't they suspect it's a trap? One of the officers asked. Of course, Alex replied, but they'll still have to participate. And even knowing it's a test, they'll make mistakes. They always do. As the meeting concluded, Montgomery lingered behind. Captain Blackwood, he said when they were alone, this Thomas Hayes, what exactly was he to you? Alex considered the question. He was my mentor. He found me at Fort Benning, recognized something in me that others missed. He trained me personally for 3 years before I was accepted into shadow operatives. And then he disappeared, Montgomery observed. No contact for 3 years, and suddenly he's sending warnings about Soviet infiltrators. Your point, Colonel, Montgomery chose his words carefully. I've been in this business long enough to know that when someone resurfaces after a prolonged absence, particularly in circumstances like these, their motives warrant scrutiny. Hayes's loyalty is beyond question, Alex replied, her tone cooler than before. Everyone's loyalty should be questioned in our line of work, Captain. That's the nature of intelligence. Alex studied him for a long moment. I'll take that under advisement, Colonel. As Montgomery left, Alex turned back to the display, looking at the grid of faces somewhere among them. 3 traitors waited watching planning, and perhaps watching her. The officers' club at Fort Harding had been transformed into a convincing facsimile of a conference venue. Tables arranged in a horseshoe pattern named placards for each delegate, a podium for presentations, and a sidebar with refreshments. It was exactly the kind of setting where intelligence operatives did some of their most productive work, semi-formal gatherings, where alcohol loosened tongues and shared professional interests provided natural openings for information exchange. The trainees arrived in their civilian personas, most looking uncomfortable in business attire after weeks in uniform. They moved awkwardly at first, adjusting to their cover identities and objectives, but gradually the room filled with conversation as they settled into their roles. Alex dressed in a conservative navy blue skirt suit that deliberately understated her physicality, observed from a corner position that gave her sightlines to the entire room. She had assigned herself the role of conference organizer, a position that allowed her to interact with everyone while maintaining a natural distance. Cole had been assigned the identity of a French trade representative with connections to North African oil interests. He played the role with surprising commitment, his natural arrogance translating well to the haughty diplomat he was portraying. His French accent, however, was atrocious. Reeves moved through the room with graceful ease, embodying her cover as a British economic advisor with apparent effortlessness. She worked efficiently, engaging multiple delegates in conversations that artfully extracted information while revealing little. Of all the trainees, she showed the most natural aptitude for the exercise. Shawcast, as a Norwegian shipping magnate, struggled more visibly with his role. His attempts at a Scandinavian accent were inconsistent, and his body language betrayed his military background. Despite his civilian clothes, he moved with a soldier's economy and awareness. A third trainee, Lieutenant Claire Harper, maintained a low profile as a Canadian agricultural attaché. Unlike the others, she seemed content to observe, rather than dominate conversations, positioning herself strategically near groups discussing sensitive topics. Alex made notes on a clipboard as she observed, documenting both strengths and weaknesses in each trainee's performance. But her primary focus remained on Reeves Harper and a 4th trainee named Thomas Richards, watching for patterns or anomalies that might confirm her suspicions. She circulated through the room, analyzing micro-expressions, those fleeting, involuntary facial movements that revealed true emotions before conscious control could suppress them. It was a technique developed by the CIA and refined by shadow operatives, the ability to read the momentary flash of fear, surprise, or recognition that even the best trained operatives couldn't fully control. The opportunity came during a scheduled presentation on international shipping regulations. As the designated presenter droned on about maritime boundaries, Alex noticed Reeves slip a folded piece of paper to Richards, who was playing the role of a Japanese trade official. The exchange was subtle, professional handlers passing information during a formal handshake, but Alex caught it. Richards pocketed the note without reading it, continuing his conversation with another trainee as if nothing had occurred. 10 minutes later, he excused himself to use the restroom. Alex gave him a 30-second head start, then followed. The men's room was at the end of a short hallway. Alex positioned herself around the corner, out of sight but within earshot. She heard the rustle of paper, then silence. When Richards emerged, his expression had changed subtly, a new tension around his mouth, a focused look in his eyes. Instead of returning to the main conference room, he turned in the opposite direction toward a side exit that led to the base's administrative buildings. Alex followed at a distance, maintaining visual contact without revealing her presence, a skill Hayes had drilled into her through countless exercises in urban environments around the world. Richards moved with purpose, checking his watch twice as he approached the communications building. He nodded to the guard at the entrance, showing his military ID before entering. Alex couldn't follow without drawing attention, so she circled around to a vantage point that gave her a view of both the front and rear exits. 15 minutes later, Richards emerged from the back door, glancing around furtively before heading toward the barracks. Alex made a mental note of the time and his behavior, adding another piece to the puzzle she was assembling. When she returned to the conference exercise, Reeves was deep in conversation with Cole, their heads bent close together despite their supposed roles representing different countries. Alex moved within earshot, pretending to rearrange materials on the sidebar. Doesn't make sense, Cole was saying, his voice low. Why would she suddenly reveal herself now? There must be something bigger happening. Or someone forced her hand, Reeves replied. The question is, what does she know about us? Cole started to respond but caught sight of Alex nearby. He straightened abruptly, switching to his terrible French accent. The shipping regulations, they are most restrictive for our North African partners, non-permitted. Reeves recovered more smoothly, seamlessly, transitioning to her British persona. Indeed, Mr. Beaumont. Perhaps we should schedule a separate discussion to address these specific concerns. Alex approached them directly, clipboard in hand. I couldn't help overhearing your interest in North African shipping regulations. As it happens, we have a special session on that very topic scheduled for tomorrow. I'd be happy to add both your names to the attendee list. Cole's smile was stiff. That would be most helpful. Wonderful. Alex made a show of writing on her clipboard. Oh, and Ms. Harrington, she addressed Reeves using her cover name. I noticed you missed the morning session on Soviet trade embargoes. Given your expertise in Eastern European economics, that seemed unusual. Reeves didn't flinch. A migraine, I'm afraid. Dreadful timing. I've reviewed the materials, however. Alex nodded sympathetically. Of course, these conferences can be quite taxing. I find it helps to maintain regular routines, meals at the same time, adequate hydration, regular exercise. She smiled pleasantly. Speaking of which, I noticed you use the East Track for your morning runs. Beautiful views of the sunrise from there. It was a calculated revelation. Alex had indeed observed Reeves's morning routine, but Reeves had no way of knowing she was being watched. The implications of such surveillance would now prey on Reeves's mind, creating exactly the kind of psychological pressure Alex intended. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Reeves's face before her professional mask reasserted itself. Yes, it's quite lovely. Perhaps you'd care to join me sometime. I prefer to run alone, Alex replied, but I appreciate the invitation. She moved on, leaving Cole and Reeves to digest the interaction. The seeds of doubt had been planted. Now she would watch them grow. The exercise continued throughout the day with various crisis scenarios introduced to test the trainees' ability to maintain cover under pressure. By late afternoon, when Alex finally called an end to the day's activities, the strain of sustained role-playing was evident on most faces. As the trainees filed out, Colonel Montgomery joined Alex in reviewing her notes. Initial impressions, and he asked. Alex handed him her clipboard. 3 potential candidates matching Hayes's warning. Reeves is the most obvious. Her cover performance is too good, too practiced. Richards showed suspicious behavior during the exercise, potentially transmitting information. And there's Harper, who's been deliberately unobtrusive, but has positioned herself to overhear key conversations throughout the day. Montgomery scanned her detailed observations. What's your next move? Escalation, Alex replied. Tomorrow we introduce a security breach scenario. Those with hidden agendas will respond differently than those legitimately invested in the exercise. Montgomery nodded, returning the clipboard. And if you confirm your suspicions, Alex's expression remained neutral, but her eyes hardened. Then we give them exactly what Hayes warned us about, a chance to reveal themselves completely. Be careful, Alex, Montgomery cautioned. If there really are 3 Soviet assets in this program, they are likely aware that they are being hunted. Cornered animals are unpredictable. So am I, Alex replied softly. That's what makes me dangerous. In a secure communications room on the opposite side of the base, General Blackwood received an urgent transmission from Washington. His face remained impassive as he read the decoded message, but the muscle in his jaw tightened perceptibly. When he asked the communications officer, 20 minutes ago, sir. Berlin station confirmed it came through the established channel. Blackwood nodded. I need a secure lines to Langley Priority Alpha, and find Captain Blackwood immediately. 10 minutes later, Alex strode into the communications center, her face questioning. Blackwood gestured for her to follow him into a private office. We've received another message from Hayes, he said, without preamble once the door was closed. More specific this time. He handed her a folded piece of paper. It came through diplomatic channels about an hour ago, coded in the old Phantom Echo cipher. I've already decrypted it. Alex unfolded the message reading the neat block letters, Black Widow activated. Primary target safe house inventory. Secondary target shadow personnel. Containment compromised. Vienna meeting burned. Operative in place, confirmed identity. Richards T. proceed with extreme caution. She read it twice, then looked up at Blackwood. Hayes has someone else at Fort Harding. Someone we don't know about. Blackwood nodded. It appears so, and they've confirmed Richards is one of the Soviet agents. I've been monitoring him since this morning, Alex said. He received something from Reeves, then attempted to access the communications center. I was planning to confront him tomorrow. That may be too late, Blackwood replied. Surveillance picked up unusual radio traffic again last night. Encrypted, but using frequencies we know the Soviets favor for field operations. Here at Fort Harding. Brief transmission impossible to pinpoint exactly, but definitely originating from somewhere on base, Alex quoted from their earlier conversation. Yes, they are communicating with handlers preparing for something. The question is what, Alex asked, and when? Tonight, Blackwood replied grimly. Intelligence suggests they're moving up their timetable. They know we're on to them. Alex absorbed this, adding it to her mental map of the situation. Richards will make his move first. He's the most exposed after today's exercise. She began to pace, thinking through scenarios. We need to set a trap. Let him think he's accessing the information he wants, but under controlled conditions. And the others? Blackwood asked. If Richards is compromised, they'll accelerate their plans too. We need to be ready. Alex stopped pacing, her decision made. I'll confront Richards tonight. Alone. That's too dangerous, Blackwood objected. We should bring in a tactical team. A tactical team will spook all three of them. We need to take them individually, maintain the element of surprise. Blackwood studied his wife's face, recognizing the cold determination that had settled over her features. You're using yourself as bait, he said. It wasn't a question. I'm the most obvious threat to their operation, Alex replied, matter-of-factly. If they want to complete their mission, they need to neutralize me first. Alex, Blackwood began his professional detachment, slipping for a moment. This is what I was trained for, Robert. She cut him off gently but firmly. What we both signed up for. A heavy silence filled the room, laden with unspoken concerns and shared history. Finally, Blackwood nodded, his military bearing reasserting itself. I'll arrange additional security, and he said, but I want you wearing this. He withdrew a small device from his pocket, a transmitter disguised as an ordinary pen. Continuous channel to my position. Anything goes wrong, you activate it immediately. Alex accepted the device, tucking it into her breast pocket. Agreed. And Robert, be careful. If there are 3 assets here, one of them could be someone close to you. His expression hardened. I've trusted exactly 3 people in my entire career, he replied. Hayes, you, and Colonel Montgomery. 2 of you I married. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. My judgment may be questionable, but it's consistent. After he left, Alex completed her preparations with renewed focus. She checked her sidearm, a compact Beretta M9, the military's new standard-issue pistol that had replaced the venerable M1911 just 3 years earlier. The weapon felt balanced in her hand, its 15-round magazine a significant improvement over the older model's 7-round capacity. She secured a combat knife in an ankle sheath hidden beneath her pant leg, the same blade she'd carried in East Berlin and countless other operations. It had saved her life more times than she cared to remember. Tonight would bring matters to a head one way or another. By midnight, she would either have exposed the Soviet assets or be dead. In her line of work, there were rarely other outcomes. Lieutenant Thomas Richards moved through the darkness with practiced ease, his steps silent on the wet grass. The rain had started just after sunset, a steady drizzle that reduced visibility and muffled sound, perfect conditions for what he needed to do. The communications building stood 50 meters ahead, its windows glowing faintly in the night. 2 guards at the main entrance, standard procedure. But Richards knew the building's vulnerabilities intimately. He had spent weeks observing patterns, noting shift changes, identifying blind spots in the security protocols. There was a maintenance entrance on the east side, rarely used, minimally monitored. The lock was military grade, but Richards had prepared for that too. In his pocket, a key card duplicated from a brief encounter with a maintenance worker 3 days earlier. He approached the door cautiously, constantly scanning for movement. The rain plastered his hair to his skull, ran in rivulets down his neck. He withdrew the keycard, swiped it through the reader, and felt a surge of satisfaction as the light turned green. The door opened with a soft click. The maintenance corridor was dimly lit and deserted at this hour. Richards moved with purpose, knowing exactly where he needed to go. 3 lefts, 2 rights through the boiler room and up the service stairs to the second floor. The secure communications center, his target was at the end of the hall. He paused at the top of the stairs, checking his watch. 23:17 hours. The shift change would happen at 20:30. He had 13 minutes to get into position. The hallway stretched before him empty. Richards moved forward, his footsteps silent on the industrial carpet. He reached the door to the communications center and pressed his ear against it. 2 voices inside, the duty officer and a technician, just as his intelligence had indicated. He withdrew a small case from his jacket pocket and opened it to reveal a syringe. The compound it contained, a fast-acting sedative developed by KGB laboratories, would render both men unconscious within seconds, leaving him approximately 20 minutes to access the classified database, locate the safe house inventory, and transmit it to his handlers. Richards took a deep breath, steadying himself. 3 years of deep cover, maintaining his identity as a loyal American officer, had led to this moment. The Operation Black Widow would cement his place in KGB history. His hand closed around the door handle. "Looking for something, Lieutenant?" The voice came from behind him, soft but unmistakable. Richards froze, his heart hammering against his ribs. Slowly he turned. Alexandra Blackwood stood at the end of the hallway, her posture relaxed but alert. She wore standard officer's utilities, but her hand rested casually near the sidearm at her hip. "Captain Blackwood," Richards forced a smile. "I was just looking for the duty officer. I need to send an urgent personal message, family emergency." At 23:17 hours, Alex's voice was conversational, almost friendly. "Through the maintenance entrance, that seems unusual protocol for personal messages." Richards felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. She knew. Somehow she knew. His mind raced through options, calculating odds, evaluating escape routes. "The main entrance was closed," he improvised. "I thought that requisition form you're carrying," Alex interrupted, gesturing to the paper partially visible in his pocket. "The one with Colonel Montgomery's signature authorizing access to secure communications equipment. It's a forgery." Richard stiffened. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Colonel Montgomery doesn't loop his R that way, Baymize." Alex continued, taking a step forward. "It's a good forgery, but not perfect. A common mistake when duplicating signatures under time pressure." Richards's demeanor changed entirely. The nervous trainee vanished, replaced by a man with cold, assessing eyes and a fighter's stance. "You're making a mistake, Blackwood." "I don't think so," Alex replied, maintaining her calm exterior while shifting her own weight, subtly preparing for potential violence. "Black Widow is blown, Richards. We know everything, the communications, the targets, all of it. It's over." For a moment, she thought he might surrender, might realize the futility of his position. Instead, he lunged forward with surprising speed, throwing the syringe at her face while simultaneously reaching for a concealed weapon at the small of his back. Alex dodged the syringe, moving laterally while drawing her Beretta in one fluid motion. But Richards wasn't aiming to shoot, not yet. He closed the distance with remarkable speed, using a technique she recognized immediately: Systema, the combat system developed for Spetsnaz, Russia's special forces. His hand struck her wrist with precision, numbing her grip. The Beretta clattered to the floor. Richards followed with a series of rapid strikes aimed at vital points: solar plexus, throat, eyes, the hallmarks of Soviet close combat training. Alex countered each attack with equal precision, using techniques that blended Krav Maga with specialized methods developed by shadow operatives. Where Systema relied on fluid movement and pressure points, her style emphasized brutal efficiency and immediately disabling counters. They exchanged a flurry of blows in the confined hallway, each testing the other's defenses. Richards fought with the desperate efficiency of a man who knew failure meant death or worse. Alex matched him with the cold precision that had made shadow operatives legendary. The fight ended abruptly when Richards made a critical mistake, overextending on a strike that left his side exposed. Alex exploited the opening, ruthlessly driving the edge of her hand into his throat with calculated force, not enough to kill, but sufficient to incapacitate. Richards dropped to his knees, clutching his throat, unable to speak or cry out. Alex quickly secured his hands behind his back with plastic restraints she carried in her pocket. Like I said, she told the gasping man, it's over. She activated the transmitter pen, speaking calmly into it. Asset 1 secured at the Communications Building East Corridor. Extraction team needed. Within minutes, 2 security personnel arrived to take custody of Richards. Alex handed them the forged requisition form. He was attempting to access the communications center, she explained. Full isolation protocols, no contact with anyone except General Blackwood or myself. As the security team led Richards away, Alex noticed something strange, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth, despite his obvious discomfort. It wasn't the expression of a man who had just failed his mission and been captured. It was the look of someone who knew something she didn't. As the security team led Richards away, Alex felt the weight of partial victory. 1 down, 2 to go. The smile on Richards' face troubled her. He should have been defeated, concerned about his fate. Instead, he appeared almost satisfied. She made her way back to the secure command center where General Blackwood was coordinating the search for the remaining Soviet assets. The room hummed with quiet activity, communications officers monitoring frequencies, security personnel tracking movement throughout the base, analysts processing information in real time. Richards is secure, Alex reported as she entered. No transmissions were sent from the communications center. Blackwood nodded, turning from a monitor displaying the base layout. Good work. Now we need to locate Reeves and Harper. Alex studied the security feeds, noting the organized search patterns. Any unusual activity? Nothing yet. The base is locked down. All personnel accounted for except Harper. She's not in her barracks or any common areas. And Reeves? In her quarters under surveillance. She hasn't made a move yet. Alex frowned, something about the situation nagging at her instincts. It's too quiet. They know Richards failed. They should be accelerating their plans, not lying low. Unless Richards was a diversion, Blackwood suggested. The thought had already occurred to Alex. I need to question him. He's being processed now. Medical check, then isolation. You can interrogate him in 20 minutes. Alex nodded, her mind already working through scenarios. I'll start with Harper. Her background should be easy to verify. She moved to a computer terminal and began accessing personnel files. Lieutenant Claire Harper's service record appeared on the screen, comprehensive, detailed, and utterly professional. 2 years with the 525th Military Intelligence Brigade, followed by specialized training at Fort Huachuca before assignment to Fort Harding. Alex picked up a secure phone line, dialing a number from memory. After a brief exchange of authentication codes, she spoke. This is Blackwood. I need verification on personnel assigned to the 525th Military Intelligence Brigade between 1983 and 1985, specifically Lieutenant Claire Harper. She waited as the officer on the other end accessed the information. The response was immediate and definitive. Thank you, Alex said, hanging up. She turned to Blackwood. According to Colonel Montgomery, the 525th has no record of Harper ever serving with them. Blackwood's expression darkened. Another one confirmed. I'm going to find her, Alex said, checking her sidearm. She'll be somewhere on base waiting for an opportunity. Take backup, Blackwood insisted. Alex shook her head. She'll spot a team from a mile away. I work better alone. Before Blackwood could object further, an alarm blared through the command center. Red emergency lights began flashing. What's happening? Alex demanded. A communications officer turned from his console, face grim. Security breach at the administrative building East Wing. Armed intruder reported. Blackwood immediately activated the base-wide alert system. All personnel, security protocol Alpha. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Alex was already moving toward the door. That's Harper. She's making her move while we're focused on Richards. Alex, wait, Blackwood called after her, but she was gone, disappearing into the corridor with the fluid economy of motion that made her nearly invisible, even in plain sight. The administrative building's East Wing housed the base's classified records section, a treasure trove of intelligence data, including the safe house inventory that Hayes had warned about. Alex approached cautiously, her Beretta drawn, but held low at her side. 2 security officers lay unconscious near the entrance, their weapons missing. No blood visible, Harper had used non-lethal methods, suggesting she wanted to avoid unnecessary attention. Alex checked their pulses steady. They'd live. The hallway beyond stretched in darkness, emergency lighting, casting eerie shadows along the walls. Alex moved silently, ears straining for any sound beyond the distant wail of alarms. The classified records section was at the end of the corridor behind a reinforced door with both electronic and mechanical locks. As she approached, Alex noticed the door was ajar, the security systems already bypassed. She paused, listening. From inside came the soft click of computer keys, rapid and purposeful. Alex entered in a smooth motion, weapon raised. Freeze, Harper. Lieutenant Claire Harper sat at a computer terminal, fingers still poised over the keyboard. She didn't startle, didn't even look up immediately. When she finally turned, her expression was calm, almost expectant. Captain Blackwood, she said, her voice carrying none of the anxiety one would expect from someone caught in the act of espionage. Right on schedule. Alex kept her weapon trained on Harper's center mass. Step away from the terminal. Hands where I can see them. Harper complied with deliberate slowness. You're making a mistake, you know. The only mistake was yours, Alex replied. According to Colonel Montgomery, the 525th Military Intelligence Brigade has no record of your service with them. Harper smiled faintly. Is that so? It is. Care to explain? I could give you the usual excuses, Harper said. Administrative error, classified assignment records purposely obscured. But I think we're beyond that now, don't you? There was something in her tone, not the desperation of a cornered agent, but the confidence of someone with leverage. Alex sensed a trap but couldn't yet see its shape. Put your hands behind your back, she ordered, slowly. Harper made no move to comply. You know what's interesting about the 525th? They specialize in signals intelligence, monitoring decryption analysis, skills that come in handy when you're trying to intercept communications between Soviet handlers and their assets. Alex kept her expression neutral despite her growing unease. Last warning, Harper, hands behind your back. Richards doesn't know anything about me, Harper continued as if Alex hadn't spoken. His controller is entirely separate from mine. The admission hung in the air between them, direct, unambiguous. Alex had expected denial, perhaps an attempt at deception. The candor was disarming. So you admit you're a Soviet agent? Alex said, taking a step closer. Harper laughed, a short, harsh sound without humor. Soviet agent, is that what you think this is about? Nation-states playing their little games. She reached slowly into her jacket. Alex tensed, finger tightening on the trigger. Easy, Harper said. I'm not armed. Instead of a weapon, she withdrew a small photograph. Before you decide my fate, you should know what you're really involved in. She slid the photograph across the desk. Alex glanced down without taking her eyes fully off Harper. The photo showed Thomas Shadow Hayes standing beside a man Alex recognized immediately, Colonel Alexei Petrov, a high-ranking KGB officer. They were shaking hands, their expressions suggesting not hostility, but collaboration. Your mentor, Harper said, watching Alex's reaction closely. The great Thomas Hayes. Did you never wonder why he disappeared 3 years ago? Why he's only now resurfacing? Alex kept her expression neutral, though her mind raced with implications. This proves nothing. Context is everything in our business. This could be from an authorized exchange, a prisoner swap, any number of legitimate operations. Is that what you need to believe? Harper's voice held something like pity. Black Widow wasn't activated to steal your precious safe house inventory, Captain. It was activated because Hayes himself ordered it. The claim was so outrageous that Alex almost laughed. You expect me to believe Hayes is working for the Soviets? That the most decorated covert operative in American history has turned traitor? Not a traitor, Harper corrected. A realist. The Cold War is a game played by old men sending young ones to die. Hayes saw through it. He's working for something beyond national interest. Alex's instincts screamed that this was manipulation, a desperate attempt by Harper to create confusion and division. And yet Hayes' sudden reappearance after 3 years of silence, the cryptic messages, the warning about 3 assets when he could have simply named them, doubts she had suppressed began to surface. Even if that were true, Alex said carefully, it changes nothing about your situation. You're still a Soviet asset on an American military base. Your operation is compromised. Harper sighed as if disappointed by Alex's response. I had hoped for better from you. Hayes always said you were the one who could see beyond the limitations of patriotism and that you understood the greater game. Her hand moved again, this time toward her collar. Alex tensed, but Harper merely unfastened the top button of her blouse, revealing the edge of a tattoo on her collarbone, a design Alex recognized instantly. The same shattered compass that formed part of her own tattoo. He trained me too, Harper said softly. After you, in Prague, 1973, I was his last student before he disappeared. Alex felt as if the floor had shifted beneath her feet. The implications were staggering. Either Harper was telling the truth, which meant Hayes had betrayed everything he claimed to stand for, or this was an elaborate deception using information the Soviets had somehow obtained about shadow operatives. If what you're saying is true, Alex said, fighting to maintain her composure, then surrender to me now. Let me take you to General Blackwood. Together we can make sense of this. Harper shook her head sadly. It's too late for that. By now, Reeves has already completed what Richards couldn't. The transmission is sent. The operation is complete. As if on cue, an alarm began blaring throughout the base, a different tone from the previous one, the signal for a communications breach. Alex's hand moved instinctively to the transmitter pen, but before she could activate it, Harper lunged across the desk with startling speed. The fight was brief but vicious. Harper fought with the same distinctive style that Hayes had taught Alex, economical movements designed to incapacitate rather than kill targets, selected for maximum effect with minimum effort. It was like fighting a mirror image, each anticipating the other's moves before they were made. In the end, what separated them wasn't skill, but conviction. When the opening came, a momentary overextension on Harper's part, Alex struck without hesitation, driving the heel of her hand upward into Harper's chin with precise force. Harper dropped unconscious before she hit the floor. Alex secured her quickly, then activated the transmitter. Asset 2 neutralized. Administrative building classified records section. Medical attention required. She paused, making a decision. And Robert, we need to talk about Hayes. Wham! The alarm continued to wail as Alex sprinted across the compound toward the communications center. Security teams moved in coordinated patterns, securing buildings, checking identifications, maintaining the lockdown. Through her earpiece came the steady stream of reports, no sign of Reeves. All access points covered communications being monitored. Alex knew better. If Harper was right, the transmission had already been sent. Reeves had completed her part of the mission, while they were focused on Richards and Harper. The communications center loomed ahead, its antenna array silhouetted against the night sky. As Alex approached, she saw the signs of struggle. A security guard slumped against the wall, blood trickling from a head wound. The main door forced open, the sound of voices raised in alarm from within. She entered cautiously, weapon ready. The main communications room was in chaos, equipment, damaged papers, scattered technicians trying to assess the extent of the breach. At the center of it all stood Colonel Montgomery, his face grim as he spoke into a secure line. Complete lockdown, nothing in or out. I want every frequency monitored, every transmission logged. He looked up as Alex entered, his expression shifting from determination to relief. Captain Blackwood, Harper. Secured, Alex replied. What happened here? Reeves, Montgomery said, his voice tight with controlled anger. She accessed the secure terminal, transmitted an encrypted data packet before we could stop her, then took hostages the duty officer and a technician. They're in the auxiliary communications room. Alex's mind raced. The safe house inventory? We don't know yet. The transmission was encrypted using a protocol we've never seen before. Our best analysts are working on it now. Alex surveyed the damage. And Reeves barricaded herself in. She's demanding safe passage off the base. Has she sent any more transmissions? None that we've detected, but we can't be certain. The equipment in that room could send a burst transmission that our monitors might miss. Alex studied the security feed showing the exterior of the communications building. I want to talk to her. Absolutely not, Montgomery said firmly. We have a tactical team assembling now. They'll handle the situation. A tactical assault risks the hostages, Alex countered. And if Reeves hasn't yet transmitted whatever intelligence she's after, pushing her into a corner guarantees she'll send it before she's taken down. So what do you propose? Walking in there alone, giving her another hostage, a high-value one at that? I'm proposing I do what I was trained to do, Alex replied calmly. What Hayes taught me to do. Montgomery held her gaze for a long moment, professional judgment warring with personal concern. Finally, he nodded once, a sharp military acknowledgement of her expertise. On one condition, he said, you wear a wire, and at the first sign this is going south, I'm sending in the tactical team, hostages be damned. Agreed, Alex replied, but there's something you need to know first. She hesitated, then pressed on. Harper made some claims about Hayes about his loyalties. Montgomery's expression didn't change, but Alex knew him well enough to see the slight tightening around his eyes. What kind of claims? That he's working with the Soviets, that he activated Black Widow himself. She paused. She showed me a photograph of Hayes with Alexei Petrov, and she has the shadow operative's tattoo. A heavy silence fell between them. Montgomery's face revealed nothing, but his posture had become rigid, his bearing more formal, a retreat into military discipline in the face of disturbing information. Do you believe her? He finally asked. I don't know, Alex admitted. It could be an elaborate deception, but it would explain Hayes' sudden reappearance, the cryptic messages. Or it could be exactly what it appears to be, a desperate attempt to create confusion and division at a critical moment. Focus on Reeves for now, Montgomery said, his voice steady, reasonable. We'll deal with Harper's claims afterward. Alex nodded, though the doubts remained. She allowed the security team to fit her with a concealed microphone, tested the equipment, then prepared to enter the auxiliary communications room. Be careful, Montgomery said quietly as she turned to leave. Always, she replied. The auxiliary communications room was smaller than the main facility, designed as a backup in case primary systems failed. It contained essential equipment, a KW7 encryption device used throughout NATO for secure voice and data transmission, first-generation computers used for encoding and decoding, teletype machines for printed communications, and access to the newly deployed Defense Satellite Communications System, DSCS, that provided global reach for American military communications. Alex approached the door, slowly making her presence known. Lieutenant Reeves, she called, her voice carrying through the closed door. This is Captain Blackwood. I'm unarmed and coming in to talk. There was a moment of silence. Then Reeves's voice responded from within. Prove you're unarmed. Hands up. Turn around slowly. Alex complied, raising her hands and turning in a full circle before the security camera mounted above the door. She had, in fact, left her sidearm behind, though the combat knife remained concealed in her ankle sheath. A calculated risk. Come in alone, Reeves instructed. Any sign of others, and the hostages die. Alex entered slowly, hands still raised. Inside, Reeves stood at the far end, a pistol held against the head of a terrified young technician. The duty officer lay on the floor nearby, blood seeping from a wound on his temple, but still breathing. That's far enough, Reeves said when Alex had reached the center of the room. You've caused quite a problem, Captain. This could have been so much cleaner. It's over, Reeves, Alex replied, keeping her voice calm and reasonable. Richards and Harper are in custody. The base is locked down. There's no way out of this for you. Reeves laughed, a brittle sound edged with tension. There's always a way out. That's the first rule they teach us. Who is they exactly? Alex asked, slowly lowering her hands to appear less threatening. Your KGB handlers. The ones who abandoned Richards at the first sign of trouble. The ones who will disavow all knowledge of you the moment you're captured. Don't pretend to understand my situation. Reeves snapped, her composure cracking slightly. You with your perfect patriotic narrative, your unquestioning loyalty to a system built on lies. Alex took a careful step forward. Then help me understand. Explain it to me. Reeves's grip on the technician tightened, causing him to whimper in fear. Stay where you are, she warned. I don't need to explain anything to you. All I need is safe passage off this base, a vehicle, clear access to the main gate, and these two remain unharmed. You know I can't authorize that, Alex said, but I can offer you something better. Cooperation, protection, a chance to determine your own fate rather than leaving it in the hands of handlers who see you as expendable. Cooperation, Reeves echoed Harper's earlier skepticism. We both know what that means. Interrogation, then disappearance. A nameless grave or a lifetime in some black site prison. No, thank you. Alex calculated her next move carefully. Reeves was unraveling the pressure of the situation, eroding her training and discipline. This presented both opportunity and danger. A desperate operative was unpredictable. Harper told me about Hayes, Alex said, introducing a new element to unbalance Reeves further. About his arrangement with Petrov, about the real purpose of Black Widow. Reeves's expression flickered with surprise and suspicion. What are you talking about? You don't know, do you? Alex pressed her advantage. You're just a pawn following orders without understanding the larger game. Harper at least knows who she's really working for. I know exactly who I work for, Reeves retorted, but uncertainty had crept into her voice. Do you? Because, according to Harper, this entire operation was orchestrated by an American Thomas Hayes, the man who trained me, the legendary Shadow. Reeves's eyes narrowed in disbelief. That's absurd. Hayes is a myth, a boogeyman American intelligence invented to explain their failures. He's very real, Alex assured her. And if Harper is telling the truth, he's been playing both sides for years, which means you've been risking your life for an operation that doesn't serve the cause you think it does. The seed of doubt was planted. Alex could see it taking root in Reeves's expression, in the slight relaxation of her grip on the hostage. Uncertainty was a powerful weapon against those trained to operate with absolute conviction. Even if that were true, Reeves said, struggling to regain her composure, it changes nothing about my current situation. I still need to get off this base. And go where? Alex asked. Back to handlers who may already be compromised, who may have been working for someone other than Soviet intelligence all along. She paused, then added, or you can put down the weapon, release the hostages, and help us understand what's really happening. Reeves's resolve was visibly weakening, the psychological pressure taking its toll. But just as Alex thought she might be breaking through, a commotion outside shattered the moment. Raised voices, the sound of running feet. Reeves's training reasserted itself instantly. Her expression hardened, her grip on the hostage tightened, and the pistol pressed more firmly against the technician's temple. No more talking, she said coldly. You have 30 seconds to clear me a path out of here, or this man dies. Then the officer, then you. Before Alex could respond, the door behind her burst open. She turned to see Shaw, entering, his expression urgent. Captain Blackwood, he called, apparently oblivious to the danger. General Blackwood sent me to tell you. The distraction was all Alex needed. As Reeves's attention shifted momentarily to the new arrival, Alex lunged forward, covering the distance between them with explosive speed. She struck Reeves's gun arm at the wrist, deflecting the weapon away from the hostage, while simultaneously driving her other hand into Reeves's solar plexus. Reeves gasped, doubling over, but recovered quickly. She abandoned the hostage, focusing her full attention on Alex. The two women engaged in a brutal, close-quarters struggle, each seeking advantage in the confined space. Reeves fought with desperation born of knowing capture meant certain death, either at the hands of her interrogators or by her own handlers if they believed she might talk. Alex fought with the cold precision of someone who had spent years preparing for exactly this kind of confrontation. The difference was marginal but decisive. When Reeves attempted a complex joint lock that would have dispelled a less experienced opponent, Alex recognized the move and countered it, using Reeves's own momentum to throw her off balance. As Reeves stumbled, Alex delivered a precise strike to the base of her skull, not enough to kill but sufficient to render her unconscious. Reeves collapsed, the pistol clattering from her hand. Alex kicked it away, then quickly secured Reeves's hands behind her back. Only then did she turn to Shaw, who stood watching with a mixture of awe and shock. Perfect timing, Lieutenant, she said, slightly breathless from the exertion. Though next time consider knocking. Shaw seemed to shake himself from his stupor. It wasn't planned. I really was sent to tell you something. Alex's attention sharpened. What is it? It's Harper, Shaw said. She's escaped custody, took down 2 guards, and she left a message for you. What message? Ask your husband about Vienna 1970. Shaw looked confused. Does that mean something to you, Vienna 1970? The operation where Alex had first met Robert Blackwood, where Hayes had introduced them, setting in motion the relationship that would become the most stable element in her chaotic life. Yes, Alex said quietly, it means something. After ensuring the hostages were receiving medical attention and Reeves was securely in custody, Alex made her way back to the command center. Her mind worked furiously, trying to reconcile Harper's escape with her claims about Hayes, and now this cryptic reference to Vienna. General Blackwood was coordinating the search for Harper when Alex entered, his manner focused and professional. When he saw her, a brief flash of relief crossed his features before his military bearing reasserted itself. "Reeves," he asked. "Secured," Alex replied. "No casualties beyond the duty officer's head wound, which appears superficial. No transmissions were sent from the auxiliary communications room." Blackwood nodded, turning back to the security feeds. "Good work. Now we just need to recapture Harper. She can't have gone far. The base is locked down, all personnel accounted for except her." Alex studied her husband's profile, looking for any sign of deception or concern beyond the professional demands of the situation. Shaw delivered Harper's message. Blackwood didn't turn from the monitors. "Vienna, 1970. She said to ask you about it." For a moment, Blackwood went completely still, a reaction so subtle that only someone intimately familiar with his mannerisms would have noticed. Then he sighed, his shoulders dropping slightly. "Not here," he said quietly. "My office. 5 minutes." Alex nodded, understanding that whatever he had to say wasn't for the ears of the security team surrounding them. She left the command center, making her way through the now quiet corridors of the administrative building to Blackwood's temporary office. The room was spartanly furnished: a desk, 2 chairs, a filing cabinet, and not much else. Military efficiency at its most basic. Alex closed the door behind her, then waited standing rather than sitting, her posture betraying the tension she felt. Blackwood arrived precisely 5 minutes later, closing and locking the door behind him. He crossed to the window, looking out at the darkened base, his back to Alex. "Vienna was where we met," he said finally, "where Hayes introduced us. But there was more to that operation than you knew, than either of us knew at the time." Alex remained silent, waiting for him to continue. "Hayes was running multiple operations simultaneously," Blackwood went on. "The official one, extracting the East German physicist, and something else, something unauthorized. He met with Petrov there, just as Harper claimed." "You knew about this?" Alex's voice was carefully neutral. Blackwood turned to face her. "Not then. I discovered it 2 years later, when I was assigned to counterintelligence, found surveillance photos that had been buried in the archives. Hayes with Petrov exchanging what appeared to be documents. And you never told me. What was I supposed to say? That your mentor, the man who shaped you into who you are, might be playing both sides? That the foundation of your entire career might be built on deception?" Blackwood's expression was pained. "I investigated further, found other instances, other meetings, but never enough evidence to determine what he was actually doing." Alex absorbed this, her mind recalibrating everything she thought she knew. "And now with Hayes resurfacing with these warnings about Black Widow, now I don't know what to believe," Blackwood admitted. "Is he warning us about a legitimate Soviet operation? Or is this part of some deeper game he's playing, has been playing for decades?" The question hung in the air between them, unanswerable with the information they currently possessed. Alex moved to the desk, resting her hands on its surface, needing the physical stability as her conceptual world shifted. "Harper's escape," she said finally. "Could she have had help?" Blackwood's expression darkened. "You mean from inside our own security team?" "It's possible. The reports describe her taking down 2 trained guards with surprising ease. Or she's better trained than we anticipated." Alex straightened, decision made. "We need to find her before she makes contact with whoever she's working for, whether that's Soviet intelligence or Hayes himself." "The base is locked down," Blackwood reminded her. "Every building is being searched methodically. It's only a matter of time." "Unless she's already gone," Alex countered. "There are ways off this base that don't involve the main gate's maintenance tunnels, emergency access points." She paused. "Places someone with inside knowledge would know about." Blackwood's expression sharpened. "You have something specific in mind?" "The old bunker complex on the North Ridge, decommissioned in '67, but never fully sealed. There's an access tunnel that leads beyond the perimeter fence." "How do you know about that?" Alex's lips curved in a grim smile. "I make it my business to know every entry and exit point of any facility I operate in. It's what Hayes taught me." Blackwood nodded, accepting her explanation. "I'll assemble a team." "No," Alex cut him off. "Harper will be watching for that. I go alone. If she's there, she'll be more likely to engage with just me. And if it's a trap, then springing it is the fastest way to get answers." Blackwood studied her face, recognizing the determination that had made her such an effective operative. "1 hour," he said finally. "If you haven't reported back by then, I send in everything we have." Alex nodded, accepting the compromise. 1 hour. The North Ridge rose behind Fort Harding like a protective spine, its slopes covered in pine forest that appeared black in the darkness. Alex moved through the trees with practiced stealth, using natural cover and staying off established paths. She had changed into dark combat fatigues, her face blackened with camouflage paint, every piece of equipment secured to prevent noise. The entrance to the old bunker complex was concealed behind a growth of juniper bushes. The steel door rusted but still functional. Alex approached cautiously, scanning for signs of recent passage. In the soft earth before the entrance, she found what she was looking for: fresh footprints, a single set heading inward. Drawing her knife, the only weapon she had brought, Alex eased the door open, wincing at the creak of neglected hinges. The passage beyond was pitch black, the air stale and heavy with the scent of damp concrete and rusting metal. She activated a small penlight, keeping the beam pointed downward to minimize its visibility. The tunnel stretched ahead, descending into the ridge at a gentle slope. Water dripped somewhere in the darkness, the sound echoing eerily. Alex moved forward, every sense alert for signs of ambush or surveillance. She had traveled perhaps 100 yards when she detected a faint glow ahead, suggesting artificial light. Someone was indeed using the bunker. Alex extinguished her own light, allowing her eyes to adjust to the near-total darkness. As she continued forward, guided now by touch and memory. The tunnel eventually opened into a larger chamber, the main command area of the old bunker complex. The facility had been built during the early days of the Cold War, specifically during the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962, when nuclear annihilation seemed imminent. It had served as an emergency command post, a place where military leadership could continue operations even after a first strike. Alex pressed herself against the wall beside the entrance, listening intently. From within, she could hear movement, someone walking on concrete, the occasional metallic sound of equipment being handled. Taking a slow, deep breath, Alex made her decision. She stepped into the doorway, knife held ready but not raised aggressively. "That's far enough, Harper." The figure at the far end of the room turned slowly. In the dim light provided by a single battery-powered lamp, Harper's features were shadowed, her expression unreadable. "I wondered if you'd figure it out," Harper said, her voice echoing slightly in the concrete chamber. "The tunnel, not many people know about this place. Hayes taught us both to always know our escape routes," Alex replied, remaining in the doorway, maintaining distance between them, "just as he taught us to anticipate each other's moves." Harper nodded, acknowledging the point, "Which is why this conversation was inevitable. Why I left that message." "Vienna, 1970, Alex said. "Blackwood told me about seeing the surveillance photos, about Hayes meeting with Petrov." "Did he tell you everything?" Harper asked. "About the operation, about what Hayes was really doing there?" "Why don't you tell me your version?" Harper gestured to a metal table where several folders lay open. "I brought proof documents Hayes entrusted to me before he disappeared. The complete record of his activities that neither American nor Soviet intelligence fully understood." Alex remained where she was, suspicion warring with curiosity. "Why would he give such sensitive material to you?" "For the same reason he gave you that broken compass," Harper replied. "Because he saw something in me, a capacity to understand the larger game." Slowly maintaining awareness of her surroundings and potential threats, Alex approached the table. The documents appeared: genuine operation reports, surveillance photos, handwritten notes in Hayes's distinctive style. But it was a photograph at the bottom of the stack that captured her attention. It showed Hayes standing with a group of men Alex didn't recognize, not military, not intelligence operatives, by their bearing and dress. They appeared to be scientists or academics gathered around what looked like technical schematics. "Who are they?" Alex asked, not touching the photograph. "Physicists, mathematicians, computer scientists?" Harper moved to stand opposite her across the table. From both sides of the Iron Curtain, men who understood that the Cold War was driving humanity toward extinction. Alex looked up sharply. "What are you saying?" "Hayes wasn't betraying his country," Harper explained it, her voice taking on a passionate intensity. "He was trying to save it. Save everyone. He built a network of scientists and intelligence operatives who shared information, who worked to prevent the worst excesses of both superpowers." "A shadow organization," Alex said skeptically, "operating across international boundaries without oversight or accountability. Operating beyond the short-sighted politics that push us constantly toward the brink of nuclear annihilation," Harper countered. "Think about it, Alex. How many near misses have we had? How many times have we come to the edge of a war that would destroy civilization? Hayes saw a different path. Alex's mind raced evaluating this new information against everything she knew about Hayes. His disillusionment with political leadership had been evident even in their earliest conversations. His belief that operatives on the ground understood realities that politicians in Washington could never grasp. Was it so unbelievable that he might have extended that thinking to its logical conclusion? If what you're saying is true, Alex said carefully, then what was Black Widow really about? Why the warnings about Soviet assets at Fort Harding? Harper sighed, suddenly looking weary. Because not everyone in Hayes's network shares his vision of cooperation. Some, particularly in the KGB, saw an opportunity to gain advantage. They recruited assets like Reeves and Richards independently outside the network's knowledge or control. And you... I was recruited directly by Hayes just as you were, trained to operate in the spaces between official missions to serve a higher purpose than national interest. Alex studied Harper's face, looking for signs of deception. She found none, only the same absolute conviction that had characterized Hayes himself. Why are you telling me this now? Alex was asked. Why reveal everything when you could have simply escaped? Because Hayes needs you, Harper replied simply. The network is fracturing. The hardliners in Moscow are pushing for advantage. The Vienna meeting wasn't just burned, it was targeted. Someone tried to kill Hayes, who we don't know yet. Could be KGB elements operating independently. Could be someone from your side who discovered the network's existence. Harper leaned forward intently. What we do know is that Hayes trusts you above all others. He believes you're the only one who can help rebuild what's being destroyed. Alex stepped back from the table, needing physical distance to process these revelations. Everything she had believed about her career, about Hayes' disappearance, about the nature of the Cold War itself, all of it was being challenged. I need proof, she said finally. Not just documents that could be forged, not just claims about Hayes' intentions. Something incontrovertible. Harper reached into her pocket, withdrawing a small object that gleamed dully in the lamplight, a compass identical to the one Hayes had given Alex years ago during their first training mission. Its glass was shattered in exactly the same pattern, its needle still pointing unerringly north. He gave this to me, Harper said softly, told me the same story he told you about breaking it during a firefight in Korea, about broken things still functioning. She held it out. Look at the back. Alex took the compass cautiously. Turning it over, she found an inscription she knew hadn't been on her own. Vienna, October 12th, midnight. Come alone. A message, she asked, looking up at Harper. An invitation, Harper corrected, to join the network to help Hayes finish what he started. And if I refuse, if I turn you in and report everything you've told me, Harper shrugged, seemingly unconcerned, then you'll never know the truth. And Hayes will find another way forward, as he always has. Alex turned the compass over in her hand, feeling its weight, not just the physical object, but the decision it represented. Everything in her training, her official oaths, her career pointed toward rejecting Harper's claims, treating this as enemy manipulation. And yet the compass, the broken glass that still functioned, the lesson Hayes had taught her about strength emerging from damage. Could the same principle apply to the fractured world of international relations? Could cooperation emerge from the broken landscape of the Cold War? One more question, Alex said, her decision not yet made. What about Blackwood? Does he know about any of this? Harper's expression softened slightly. No. Hayes kept him entirely separate from the network, protected him from knowledge that would force impossible choices. Why, because Hayes knew how much Blackwood meant to you, and because some people are too deeply embedded in the existing system to see beyond it. Harper paused. Hayes never doubted Blackwood's integrity or patriotism. He simply recognized that not everyone is suited for operating in the gray areas where real progress happens. Alex closed her fingers around the compass, feeling its edges press into her palm. I need time, she said finally. Time to verify what I can of your claims. Time to decide. Harper nodded, accepting this. You have until October 12th. After that, Hayes will assume you have made your choice. She began gathering the documents from the table. I'm leaving now. I don't expect you to let me go, but I am asking you to consider it as a show of good faith. Alex stood silent for a long moment, weighing options, consequences, loyalties. Finally, she stepped back from the table, creating a clear path to the tunnel that led beyond the base perimeter. One condition, she said, leave the documents. All of them. Harper hesitated, then nodded. Fair enough. She placed the folders on the table, then moved toward the exit tunnel. At the entrance, she paused, looking back at Alex. Whatever you decide, remember what Hayes always told us. The truth isn't something you are given. It's something you find for yourself. Then she was gone, her footsteps fading into the darkness of the tunnel. Alex remained motionless, listening until the sound disappeared completely. Only then did she approach the table, gathering the documents Harper had left behind. The broken compass remained in her hand, its needle pointing steadfastly north, despite the shattered glass that protected it, a metaphor perhaps for what she now faced, finding true direction amid the fragments of everything she had believed. Alex secured the documents inside her jacket, then made her way back through the tunnel toward Fort Harding. She had decisions to make, truths to uncover, and less than 3 weeks to determine which path she would follow. Behind her, the old bunker returned to darkness, its secrets once again buried in shadow, like so many others in the clandestine world where Alex had spent her life. Like the mark of the panther on her back, some truths remained hidden until circumstances forced them into the light. And once revealed, they could never be unseen. The choice that lay before her now would define not just her future, but potentially the future of a world balanced on the knife edge of destruction. A world where the games of shadows determine the fate of nations. A world where broken things still function, sometimes better than before. The shadows had always been Alexandra Blackwood's world, a realm of whispered truths and necessary deceptions. She had worn her tattoo like armor, the Black Panther, a symbol of lethal grace hidden beneath ordinary appearance. Now holding the shattered compass in her palm, she understood what Hayes had been teaching her all along, not just how to disappear, but how to see beyond the boundaries others accepted without question. The price of such vision was steep. Life lived in twilight relationships tested by secrets, the constant weight of decisions that could never be fully shared, even with those closest to her. As dawn broke over the Montana mountains, Alex traced the outline of the panther tattoo beneath her shirt. Some marks run deeper than ink. Some loyalties transcend flags and borders. And sometimes the most powerful choice is rejecting the notion that one must choose it all.